"Oh my God, what's happened to you, Salar?" Sandra exclaimed, seeing him on the first day of the new semester. "Nothing, really." Salar tried to smile. "Have you been ill?" she asked concernedly. "Yes, a little. But it appears to me that you have been quite ill. You've lost weight and have got dark rings around your eyes. What were you ill with?" "Nothing much. Just a little fever and food poisoning, I suppose." He smiled. "Were you away in Pakistan?" "No, I was here." "I phoned you several times before leaving for New York. Each time the answering service responded. You should have recorded that you'd left for Pakistan." "Just stop it," he exploded. "You're bombarding me with questions." Sandra looked at him in amazement. "You're interrogating me as if you were my wife." "Salar, what happened?" "Nothing happened. Now you stop all this talk of what, where, how, why rubbish." Sandra could not speak for a few moments. She had no inkling that he would react so. Sandra was not the only one to have expressed such concern to Salar. All his other friends and acquaintances had reacted similarly on seeing Salar. By the end of the day, Salar was thoroughly rattled and had become somewhat aggressive. He had not gone to the university to be interrogated. The concern of his friends repeatedly reminded him that something really awful had happened to him, and he wanted release from this realization. "Would you like to go to the movies this weekend?" Danish, who was visiting Salar, asked. "Yes, I would." Salar agreed. "Then be ready, I'll pick you up." Danish confirmed the arrangement. Danish picked up Salar as arranged. Salar had gone to the movies after several weeks, and he was looking forward to an enjoyable evening. But 10 minutes after the movie began, he suddenly felt an acute and inexplicable fear. The characters on the screen ahead appeared to him like puppets that he could not understand. He quietly got up and left. He sat on the bonnet of Danish's car in the parking lot for a long time, then hailed a taxi and returned to his apartment. Professor Robinson had started his lecture. Salar noted on the paper in front of him the date and the topic. He was speaking on the economic recession. As always, his eyes were fixed on the professor, but his mind was elsewhere. This had happened the first time in his life that he did not know where he was mentally. His mind flitted from one image to another, and then on to another. From one scene to another, and then on to another. He heard one voice, then another, and yet another. He had no idea where his journey started or where he was. "Salar, shall we not leave?" Sandra asked, shaking his shoulder. He was startled. The classroom was empty and only Sandra was beside him. He looked in bewilderment at the empty classroom, the wall clock, and then at his wristwatch. "Where's Prof. Robinson?" he blurted out. "The class is over and he has left," Sandra replied, looking at him somewhat amazed. "The class is over?" he doubtingly asked. "Yes?" Salar rubbed his eyes vigorously and leaned back. The only thing he remembered of Prof. Robinson's lecture was the topic and nothing else. He did not know what the professor had said. "You're looking a bit upset," Sandra inquired. "Nothing, really nothing. I want to sit here alone for some time." "Okay," Sandra said, looking at him, and picked up her things and left. He crossed his arms across his chest and started staring at the blackboard ahead. This was the third such occurrence of the day. He had thought that on rejoining the university, everything would fall back to normal and that he would come out of his depression. But that did not happen. At the university, too, he continued to be a complete victim of his mental turmoil. Also, for the first time, he was losing interest in his studies. Everything appeared artificial to him. For the first time in his life, he had gone into deep depression. Studies, university, friends, club, parties, restaurants, outings, and the like had become meaningless for him. He had stopped meeting friends. His phone often had a recorded message that he was not home. On the insistence of his friends, he would relent to go out with them, but at the last moment drop out. Even if he did go, he would suddenly leave without saying a word. He was doing the same thing at the university. He would attend one day and absent himself the next two. One class he would attend and forego the next two. Sometimes he would spend the whole day in bed in his apartment. He would start watching a film, but after a couple of minutes, he would have no clue as to what he was watching. It was the same when he'd be flicking through the TV channels. His appetite had disappeared. He'd begin to eat, but halfway he'd leave the food, and some days he'd go without it. All he did was to down endless cups of coffee. He wasn't a chain smoker, but he had become one now. He was an organized and tidy person by nature, but now his apartment was the picture of chaos and dirt. He wasn't bothered by the sight of stuff strewn around the place. His contact with his parents and siblings had decreased, and his conversation with them reduced to a minimum. They would keep talking, and he would listen, hardly responding. He had nothing more to tell them or share with them. It had all come to an end, and he had no idea why this had happened. But he knew that all these events, these thoughts were related to Imama Hashim. Had she not come into his life, all this would not have happened. First he disliked her, now he hated her. The slight sense of regret he had earlier disappeared altogether. Whatever happened to her was justified. Whatever I did to her was right. That is what she deserved, he kept telling himself. He loathed every word, every line that she had uttered. The memory of Imama's conversations would drive away his sleep and peace of mind. He'd be engulfed in strange desperation. All that he had scoffed at now haunted him. Am I going mad? Slowly losing my mind? Am I becoming schizophrenic? Strange fears would grip him unexpectedly. The lack of meaning and purpose in everything was becoming increasingly apparent. Who was he? What was he and why? Where was he and why was he there? Such questions had begun bothering him all the time. What happens when I get an MBA from Yale? I land a very good job, set up a factory, then what? Was this the reason for which I was created? With an IQ of 150 plus, so that I acquire some more degrees, run a successful business, get married, have children, enjoy luxuries, then die? That's it? He had experimented with death 4 times in his life just to satisfy his curiosity, but now, despite severe depression, he did not try to end his life. In spite of thinking about death all the time, he did not want to approach it. However, if someone were to ask him if he wanted to live on, he would hesitate to answer in the positive. He did not want to live because he did not understand the meaning of life, and he did not want to die because he did not understand death. He was suspended in a vacuum, in limbo, somewhere in between being alive yet dead and dead yet alive. He was reaching the limits of hedonism moment by moment. This man with an exceptionally high IQ, who could not forget anything said or heard in his presence. Swathed in cigarette smoke, swigging beer, dining in plush restaurants, dancing away in nightclubs, spending nights with his girlfriend, there was just one question on his mind. Is this the purpose of life? Riches and luxuries, elegant clothes, excellent food, the best facilities available for a life of 60 or 70 years. And then what? He had no answer to that and then, but this query had upset the pattern of his life. He was gradually becoming an insomniac, and it was during this period that he found himself turning to religion. He had seen many people do this to escape depression, and he did the same. He tried to read some books about Islam, but all the books went over his head. No word, no idea in them attracted him. He would force himself to read, but put them away after a few pages. A little while later, he would pick them up again, and then put them back. No, perhaps I should actually start praying. Maybe that would help. Salar tried to reason with himself, and one day when he was with Saad, he expressed this desire. I'll come with you, I told Saad, who was stepping out. But I'm going to say the Isha prayers, he reminded him. I know, he said, tying up his jogger laces. You'll come to the mosque? Saad was surprised. Yes, Salar said, standing up. To pray? He replied.
And there's no need to give me that look. After all, I'm not an unbeliever. No, you're not. But anyway, come on and pray, said Saad. Then he suddenly shifted the topic. I've told you so often before to come along. Salar did not reply. He quietly walked out with Saad. If you've come to the mosque today, then keep it up. Don't let this be your first and last visit. Saad continued as they walked past the string of houses. Salar walked silently beside him, somewhat unconcerned, but carefully avoiding skidding cars and watching his step on the road lined with piles of snow. After walking for a few minutes, they turned into a side street, and opening the door, Saad entered the house. The door was shut, but not locked. Saad did not knock or ask permission before entering. His movements were rather familiar. Salar